Now, and we are now recording.
Okay. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the first Presto Foundation TSC meeting of the year. I hope you had a wonderful holiday break. So we have 3 agenda items for today. The first one is a community update that I'm going to share. And then we have an update from our outreach committee chair, Deepti from Ahana, and then Ashish finally from Ahana will talk about Apache Ranger plugin. So let's start with the community update. Presto community has been split since the beginning of 2019, as you already know, and it has been causing a lot of confusion for our users and contributors. And during 2020, the Linux Foundation has been driving the discussions to address this confusion with the other community, the Presto SQL or the Presto Software Foundation community. And as a result of these long discussions during 2021, finally, in the past 2 weeks, the situation has been resolved by the Presto SQL community or the project rebranding itself as TrinoDB. So I think this is a great accomplishment for the project, and this is a major milestone for the project. It may not be the best or the ideal outcome for our users because when I talk with our users really want to see a single foundation or a single community or a single code base working in harmony to develop this technology. But these long discussions show that at this point in time, due to the divergence of the code base and the communities, this was not a practical solution. So this rebranding happened. But I like I said, I think this is a good outcome for both communities, as it was a confusion for the Presto users at large. So a huge thanks to the Linux Foundation team to really drive these discussions and seeing this through. And now that this major confusion resolved and getting out of our way, I'm really looking forward to a much more successful 2021. And let's focus on execution and let's focus on continuing on our innovative projects and delivering value for our community. So with that, so this was the quick community update. With that, I would like to proceed to the second agenda item, to Deepti. So Deepti, are you ready to proceed with the community update, the outreach update?
Yes, let me share a screen. Give me 1 second here. Yeah, thanks, Nezi, for the update. This is, yeah, as you said, it's great progress. A good for the Presto community, the Presto DB contributors, committers community. It helps reduce confusion, and I am very excited from an outreach perspective, a community perspective, to really drive focus on the community. And with the start of the new year, it's a good time. I want everyone's support, everyone's hands on board to make this one of the biggest year for Presto and Presto DB. So there's a lot going on. Sharing my screen here. Let me know once you can see it.
Yeah, got it. Got the screen.
Perfect. Thank you. So first off, we have, just keep it in this mode. So first off, we have PrestoCon Day. So the last time I talked about PrestoCon Lite, a version of it, we are branding it PrestoCon Day, and that's coming up March 2021. We are starting to work on the CFPs. It'll be a combination of topics. It'll be user-oriented as well as engine development oriented. So heads up on that. Looking forward to all your proposals for sessions and talks. We will try to club that with a workshop, and I'll talk about that in a bit as well. The next program that has been very successful last year is our virtual meetup group. We wrapped up the year with 14 tech talks with growth from I think was like 100 in April when we did our first meetup, or a little bit before that, to around 950 today. And we didn't meet our goal of 1,000, but let's set aggressive goals for 2021 and keep going. We have received more funding approval from the board for a more global outreach. The current meetup is based in San Francisco, and so that limits our reach. We have already created 3 new groups in London, New York, Sydney, and we will be creating a Bangalore group as well as a central US group, and if budget permits, beyond that. And so this will allow much more Presto engagement, discussion, presentations, adoption across the globe, and just remove kind of the regional focus on the Valley or kind of the West Coast of the US. In terms of the virtual workshops, I think the last time I talked about subcommittees. Each of these areas have subcommittees. For the virtual workshop, we have Amit and May driving this from Upsolver. They've worked on a plan a little bit more. The details are being worked on. And the idea is to have a Presto workshop in conjunction with the PrestoCon day that's planned for March. And we'll probably try to do a smaller version of it slightly before that. So we have practice to do a much bigger one. In terms of communication channels, we are there are ignore these bullets. There is a new mailing list that we have created based on the PrestoCon registrations, and we will start promoting that for more engagement, so that we have outbound communications about what's happening in the Presto community from the foundation itself. So it could be updates on the meetup, it could be a monthly newsletter, etc. And those are that will start off towards the end of January. And if you have updates that you want to share, right, work that's interesting, a design document, these are great things that need to be included in those updates. I will probably send out a reminder, or the subcommittee primary person will send out a reminder to capture any links, anything that you want to include in these communications. And so just a heads up on that we want to start doing that a lot more widely. And then finally, with the resolution of the naming, there's only one Presto Slack now. And we are seeing engagement, we are seeing questions. My next slide is actually talking about what are some of the areas of interest that are coming up. And so let's get active. As I've always said, would appreciate your attention to the questions that are being asked. And if you know the answers, please answer. If you don't know the answer, add somebody who you think may know the answer. All of this helps with a community. If you don't know the answer, say, hey, we don't know, but let's figure it out. Create an issue, right? Create a ticket, and we'll get to it. And so all of this engagement is very important in terms of driving the community. Some observations from, I would say, the latter half of last year. There is a lot of interest in the UDF feature. A lot of users are trying out. I'm seeing a lot of function namespace set up and things like that. That's great to see. Always good to see adoption, right? It's still experimental, but good to see the early adoption. A lot of cloud related questions, particularly AWS and S3, and so Hive connector as it relates with whether it's S3, whether it's Glue, things like that in that realm. Security integrations are coming up more, and I think we'll talk about one of those today. And then connectors to a variety of different things. There are requests that have come in for a few different data sources, and there's different people in the community are working on it. So from an outreach perspective, that's a quick update. We had talked about the TSC architect, I think now maybe a couple of meetings back. Just a quick update on that. Nezi and team, we talked about it discussed briefly this issue at the board. The ticket has been updated to some extent, and given the interest, what I will be doing is creating a PR to get some feedback, and then we'll move on from there. So that's a work in progress at the moment. That's what I had from an outreach update in my Presto Foundation outreach chair, wearing that hat. I have a quick update on the open source side from a HANA perspective. Let me pause there and see if there are any questions feedback and also comments from Amit. I think Amit is on, or Nezi.
Did you have any specific questions? Sorry.
No specific
Okay.
questions. Just if you wanted to add anything more from an
No,
outreach perspective.
I think no. Thank you. I think you've covered it pretty well. I'm open to question. I mean, love to hear from
Of course.
other members of the TSC what they think. If they have other suggestions, happy to take some feedback, especially on things like workshops and the kind of activities that we should engage with the broader community. And of course, love to get you to come and present and talk at our meetups, and do more technical blogs, and start fostering and growing our community now.
Okay. Nezi, anything else from you? Anyone else? Okay. We'll move on. So just a quick update. Let me see if I can get rid of this. Click to add text. Ashish will talk about the Ranger plugin. There are a few other important things that we are seeing in the community. So the Prometheus connector is available. Thanks for the review. I think James may have done the first pass as well as for the BigQuery connector. And so those are important ones that are coming up. We're seeing more Kubernetes being used underneath Presto. And so Prometheus from a monitoring perspective will be important. A few other PRs are out there that we are excited about. So just a quick update from an Ahana perspective, wearing a product hat for open source for Ahana. That there's a lot of good work coming up that's already out there in PRs, and that's being worked on. And there's a few more things in the pipe, which we can talk about in February, probably in a month or so. And so with that, probably a good transition. Nezi, back to you and on to the next topic. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, Dipti. This is a very nice detailed set of updates, and it's great to see like all these PRs from Ahana. So Ashish, do you want to go with the Ranger plugin work?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Nezi. Thanks, Dipti. Yeah, let me start the share. Okay. Okay. Is my deck visible?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Hi, everyone. I'll be just going over Presto Hive Ranger plugin, which we raised a proposal early on and raised the initial base PR, which is currently under review. There has been a lot of discussion and in the community, and there are a lot of customers and users have talked about it, that they would want to integrate with Ranger, and that's Ranger is supposedly widely used, and even now it's in more hybrid environment, even across cloud. So yeah, I'll just go over it. The current slide, let's look at what the current state of the authorization models, what we already have in Presto for Hive. So we have currently 4 authorization models supported. The legacy, which is the default one, which is pretty basic. It's not for the production workloads. Then there is one read-only, which is quite okay for ephemeral clusters, where you're just reading data and not a long-running cluster. There's one authorization model which is already supported for existing implementation, which has some sense of a notion of rule-based access, which is file-based authorization model, where a user need to orchestrate all the authorization policies at a schema and table level, and statically configure that in a JSON file as a security JSON file. It's slightly better, but it requires a lot more orchestration, and it still does not solve the full requirements of the security aspect and governance, where the upcoming requirements from the governance side is such as column level masking, row level filtering, and attaching more sophisticated roles around it. And the last, the SQL standard, it has a lot more limitations. It is functions fairly the same way the Hive security standard authorization model, where the users can create arbitrary roles. But the Presto's security SQL standard authorization model have a lot of limitation. It does not work with all the high metastore implementation which Presto supports, such as it does not work with Glue. Uh, it requires a lot more role management to be handled from the Hive. So it's not directly a very user-friendly authorization plugin from Presto itself. So looking at this state, and Presto as a very nice federation engine which needs to orchestrate and work with the Hadoop environments and a lot other ecosystem computation models. There is a dire need for a more advanced authorization plugin. And Apache Ranger is one of the widely used authorization framework, which has a lot more features. It has been in the community for years, which pretty much all the Hadoop distributions, and currently even in the cloud environment, it is very well supported. It has a plugin model where the Ranger takes care of policy management, auditing the policies with the separate UI component. It has a good enough flexible REST APIs so that it can be integrated with the other compute engines. It has integration with widely used authentication system. It has mechanisms to syncs the user and group from LDAP and the other systems, so that uh, Ranger does not need to replicate the user identities. For authorization, which as a core feature, Ranger supports fine-grained access control. They have role-based access control, attribute-based access control. On the governance side, it has features such as you can define custom policies where you can do a column level masking. You can define the row level filtering, which can happen at the logical layer. So if the compute engine integrates that, somebody can write a UDF which says that the credit card numbers will get masked without persisting those changes in the underlying data. And then there are some cross-cutting features, which is like auditing support for multiple clouds, which makes Ranger is a very good authorization framework in itself. Uh, Moving on, Ranger, as I mentioned, has a plugin model and already have a mechanism. So it is architected in a such way that it is built with the notion that any compute engine can write a plugin. The way it works is Ranger has basically three components. One is an admin portal, and basically a core repository of authorization rules which get persisted in a database. Those get exposed by a UI and a REST API where administrators can manage and author the new rules. It has a user group sync plugin, which will integrate with authorization authentication systems and take the users and group mappings in the Ranger. And the third component is where it goes to the different compute frameworks such as Hive, HBase, Kafka, where those compute engines basically embed a lightweight Java program, which periodically syncs authorization policies from Ranger, uh, and does all the access operation checks within the compute engines uh, by referencing those policies. And Ranger already provides a mechanism where new compute engines can write this plugins very well. So that we can look at the implementation approach which we had taken up. Uh, there has been, as I said earlier, there has been a great demand for this integration. There are some reference implementation already present in the open source. Some of those takes a very complex route of doing a SQL query rewriting to do certain features. Even the Ranger's own mechanism of writing a custom plugin involves uh, writing a fat version of the plugin, which project like Presto is very hard to get integrate with. You get a jar issue, jar hell issues, a lot of dependency problems. Uh, and one of the thing which Presto integrates with Hive with the lower level thrift protocol, so that elevates the possibility of leveraging Ranger's existing Hive plugin, as Presto just used the thrift protocol, and the Hive Ranger plugin is built on top of Hive Server 2. Uh, what is good is Presto SPI already supports a custom authorization, a way mechanism to write a custom authorization model specifically for connector, where someone, a developer can go and implement a concrete implementation of connector access control, which can be configured for a particular connector like Hive, and which will get all the callbacks before the query is being pushed to the Presto query engine. And it has a neat callbacks, whether a particular query can do show a metadata, can set a catalog session properties, can do a select, insert, update, drop, and even filter schemas. So that sets a base for writing a custom plugin, and that is the approach we have taken. That we have written a custom connector access controller, which basically integrates with Ranger APIs, and it's a lightweight implementation. Right? It just does a couple of things: is periodically syncs the policies, keep it in the memory, in the memo structure. The original fat plugin of Ranger has a different mechanism, which is a little heavier. It has a lot of file system checkpoints to periodically sync the policies. We benchmarked it and looked at it, that we wanted to ensure that this plugin does not add any level of overhead to the existing queries. So that's why we decided to store and persist the cache policy in the Presto memory itself. Uh, and then once these policies are cached, the concrete connector access control implementation will just go about evaluating every incoming access request against the policies, and depending on that, it will either accept or reject. I've mentioned the detailed doc, which is also linked to the Presto issue, where we have highlighted the detailed proposal. Uh, yeah, so the integration goes, as I mentioned, it's just going to periodically cache Ranger policies. One of the important thing is uh, we did not wanted to, one of the basic convention that all of these authorization policies are set at user at a group level. In fact, the groups are where the role-based access policies and the most of the authorization policies are configured. And Presto by default does not have a sense of what user and groups they belong to. Now, once the plugin is integrated, it is in the true ecosystem. Ranger would have already been integrated with the authentication mechanism such as LDAP. So this plugin also takes care of not just pulling the policies for authorization policies, but also queries the users and group mapping as well. And those user group mappings are also stored in the memoized in the cache. So once the access request comes, the plugin will fetch the groups from relevant to that user, which are already extracted by Ranger from the authentication system. And then it will look at if this particular user or this group which this user belongs to have should be granted access based on the configured Ranger policies. Like I said, we have taken a simpler approach. We are not going and implementing a fat concrete Ranger plugin because of keeping it a very lightweight and having a lower performant overhead, and evaluating the policies and doing further checks. I've highlighted the Git issue and the PR, which is currently under review. Uh, in the overall scheme of the security, Ranger definitely sounds like and a very promising framework which supports a lot more things which we could do and enable and integrate with Presto. Definitely Kerberos integration, which is very common in on-prem environment. As I mentioned, it has ability to define policies for row level filtering, column level masking. So the next enhancements of this plugin could be to support those. Definitely the plugin also have mechanism to enable auditing with Ranger supports, where after the checks are performed, it can asynchronously send this information to Ranger, which stores auditing information to the configured stores such as Solar. The more advanced authorization extensions would be attribute based and tag based authorization, which can also be added to this blade based plugin. And the last is the role management integration with Presto. So we can have the roles and policies being created with the SQL standard integration, NC SQL integration of creating role mechanisms within Presto. So user can say, hey, create this specific role from create role commands, and which will get persisted in Ranger. So yeah, that's pretty much I had. This PR is open under review. I'll appreciate if community can take a look at it. All kinds of inputs, design, further integrations, or enhancements are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish. So any questions for Ashish's presentation? I have one question, Ashish. Like you mentioned public cloud integration. So for people who use Presto on AWS, like does Ranger support out of the box some implementations for AWS security infra, like the security groups or IAM, etc.?
Uh, I'm not sure on the IAM, but even the AWS EMR recently added a Ranger support. So one could, so Ranger has two level of policy checks. One could do a file system based checks as well, for which Ranger already have support for S3 as a storage. So beyond just Hive table metadata level policies, one could just go and set up policies at a file system level. I suppose Ranger already have a support for AWS S3 and even GCS, Google Cloud Storage as well. I think I'm not sure that Ranger already have an integration with AWS IAM, but that would be again a good feature to get integrated.
Yeah, and Nezzy, one more thing to add to that is there is a managed service that's coming up for Ranger that's in AWS. And so we're seeing questions come up about that, right? How do I integrate with the managed service in AWS? And so obviously this will help directly integrate with the managed service as well.
Okay, so when this work is merged, then this will be out of the box, be able to be integrated with that managed service, right? No implementation needed from the customer, right?
Correct. I think Ashish, maybe you talk about your testing. I think you're thinking about it.
Yeah. So the Ranger, the users have evolved. So the Ranger predominantly initially started with a larger on-prem deployment, but what I meant in the hybrid environment, you will see a lot of standalone Ranger instances as well. So not just a larger on-prem clusters where people used to organization used to have a Ranger as a centralized security platform, which used to hook with Hive, HBase and other things. Now with EMR adding support, there are a lot of standalone Ranger instances as well. Now what this plugin is irrespective of how Ranger is hosted, with the certified versions, you just have to give point and give endpoints of the Ranger, and it's pretty lightweight. It's just that either you're using that Ranger instance is currently getting integrated with the Hive servers policy. So even if somebody's using that for existing Hive deployment, or somebody is just using it as standalone, it doesn't matter. It will just integrate with any of the Ranger endpoint, pull policies and perform authorization checks.
Thank you. Any other questions? We have been through all the agenda items for today. Is there anything else that anyone wants to bring up before we wrap up here? Okay, sounds like there is no other ad hoc agenda items. So thank you, Deepti. Thank you, Ashish, for today's presentations, and thank you everyone for joining today. I wish a happy new year to all of you and a great 2021. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.